And these are the first medical people that a wounded soldier would come into coming off the battlefield. We're between 50 and 200 yards behind the battle line. We're here to triage the patients, do some surgical work. Yeah. Let me ask you, when you triage somebody, it means, you know, to prioritize. If you go to an ER today and you go in with, you got a bad infected hangnail and you go into the ER to get it fixed and you sign in, but you're looking around, there's somebody over there that's having a heart attack and another guy might be having a stroke. Where are you on the priority list?
Last.
On the bottom. You're number last, right? Number last. We do just the opposite. We treat the least serious casualty first. We need to, in today's terms, treat them and street them. So the hangnail is treated, he's gone. Anything that can go back onto the battlefield or that can wait a little longer, that we can do better, or somebody can do better work, we deal first, get them out of the way. Then we get to the more serious patients. So, what I'm going to do right now, though, is we're going to play a game called Truth or Myth.
Volunteers.
Well, I've got 3 here.
3, so we need 6 more volunteers.
And I'm sorry, it has to be grown-ups. You have to be above this tall.
Back up just a little bit, but we need 6 more volunteers.
Okay?
So step forward if you want to be a volunteer.
And we're going to start the numbers so that we're not in your way. We're going to start lining up right here. Okay?
Number 1.
Number 1, right there.
And if you don't volunteer, we'll select you.
You'll be voluntold.
I guess I'm here already.
All right. So we need the 9 volunteers right along the front here.
It won't hurt, I promise.
I promise. You will leave with all the limbs you came with. I promise. I'd have to dig out the bone saw, so we're good. Would you like to volunteer?
I see some volunteers down here, right behind you
We've got
there.
one here. He's coming over. Stand next to the doc.
There you go.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We got 9.
All right, we're ready. I'll do this. You start
right.
giving a...
Okay, this. That's good. Thank you.
Look at it. Do not turn it over until instructed to. Keep
What we're
talking, Bob. We
doing
can do
here
this.
Do you have one?
First off, we have these 9 people. Number 1, they are all soldiers. They're all men. And they're all dead. We're going to show you something here. There you go. Now, who's a good math whiz here? Any good math whizzes here?
Over here on your left.
Okay, 6/9. Okay, that's a fraction, 6/9. Reduce that down to its lowest common denominator. 6/9.
1/3. 2/3.
There you go, 2/3. All right.
You were even wrong.
Yeah. 3/9 is 1/3. 6/9 is 2/3. There you go.
I didn't raise my hand.
Okay, this is to show you something. Of the 750,000, 750,000 soldiers, sailors, and Marines who died during the Civil War, fully 2/3 died from disease, not associated with battle. So this is what we're going to do. All right. Number 3, number 6, and number 9. Take one step forward. All right.
No.
3 and 6. Dress down to the number 9 over here. Just slide right on over it. There you go. The rest of you,
dress down to
cover
number
down. All right. Looking good. Okay. Here we go. There's a little gap here. Number 1, what did you die from? Dysentery.
Ah, man.
Dysentery. That was an endemic disease. It's waterborne, of course, probably by an amoeba, we know now. And just bad water, bad stuff in there. You get explosive diarrhea, you get dehydrated, you get sicker and sicker, and well, he died. So, number 2, you died from typhoid fever. It's another endemic disease. To show you an example, Willie Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln's son, died in the White House from typhoid fever, waterborne disease. Willie Sherman, General Sherman's son, died either down in Tennessee or Alabama, same thing, typhoid fever. Louisa May Alcott contracted typhoid fever when she was working as a nurse in a hospital. She went home and got better. So 2 out of 3, not so much. She got that stuff, she couldn't handle it, and she died. Or should I say he died? Either.
Yeah.
And number 4, you died from malaria. How do you catch malaria?
Mosquitoes.
Maybe today, but at that time, it was bad air around swamps and marshes and wetlands. Hence the name, malaria. 2 Latin words,
Malaria.
bad air. Yeah, bad air. It was the miasma around the swamps. They drained the swamps, and they proved it. They drained the swamps, and malaria went away. So did the mosquito. Anyway, he caught malaria. He had the fevers and the chills and general malaise, and just didn't feel good and just couldn't handle it. He wasn't ready for malaria, and he died. Number 5, you died from pneumonia. More than likely, he caught a case of the flu. And he went on to sick call, and the prescribed regimen for influenza, the flu, is bed rest, complete bed rest. He laid on his back. He had his food given to him on his back. He had his bedpan brought to him to do his business. He didn't move off of his back basically for about 2 weeks. In those 2 weeks, fluid built up in his lungs. He caught pneumonia, and he died. Number 7, you died from measles. We almost got rid of measles, didn't we? Today, there's a vaccine for it. Not back then. And it was the scourge of a lot of people, both children and adults. He got the measles, he had the rash, he had the fever. If he had been in the sunlight for too long, he could have gone blind. He wasn't though, but he didn't get over the measles. He got sicker and sicker, and he died. Number 8, he died from malnutrition. Malnutrition?
I'm so hungry.
In the U.S. Army, there's plenty of food, just not very good stuff. Hardtack or army bread it was. Flour, water, and salt. Bad food. They had something called desiccated vegetables. Dried vegetables. The soldiers called them desecrated vegetables because they were so bad. He was eating this stuff. It really wasn't doing much good for him. He just started to bloat a little bit because he was not really getting the stuff that the nutrition that he needed. He got sicker. He got diarrhea. He wasted away, and he died. Those are the sick guys. Here are the wounded people. Number 3, you died from... He got shot. That's a fatal wound. That's a mortal wound. We figured if, as a surgeon, if you were shot in the abdomen or in the chest, a thoracic wound, if we operated on that, sepsis would set in and he would die anyway. So we would not operate on them what we would do was make them as comfortable as we could. Usually within 24 hours they would expire anyway. So, yeah, it's not a good stuff. Okay, number 6, you died from being killed by cannon fire. Ooh. Figure it out. Yeah.
Just save me from that.
Double canister shot, that's 36 balls, 1-inch round lead or iron balls. At 500 feet, there wouldn't be anything left of that soldier except maybe his shoes. Certainly. What a way to go. Number 9, you died from being bayoneted.
Oh. Sorry, man.
A rare wound. Son of a gun. More than likely it was a triangular wound, triangular bayonet. They don't like to heal. So he was in the hospital. Unfortunately, inflammation set in. We called it that. It's infection these days. Probably blood poisoning, and yeah, well, he died too. That shows us 3 from combat, 6 from disease. Remember that. The times have changed. So, why don't you give our dead soldiers a nice round of applause. And how we doing?
Any home
Any questions?
Yeah, any home treatment for these diseases?
Pardon?
Any home treatment for these diseases that, you know, like old
There
wives?
might have been.
Doctor,
Got some.
the wounded are coming.
Okay, I'm sorry, we have wounded coming. Turn around, gather around.
If you're gonna go, might as well go by cannon.
Right?
Good. All right, let's see what we have here.
Buddy.
Okay, if you're short and you want to get a good view, come right up front. It's okay.
There you go. Where are you from, son?
Minnesota.
Are you with the 1st Minnesota? I've seen you guys around before. All right. Were you in a bunch of trees or were you behind a fence?
I'm a fence.
All right. What happened here? He's got a big splinter in his leg here. I'm gonna palpate it around. I don't feel anything broken. I don't feel anything bad. We're going to anesthetize the man, and we're going to remove this splinter from his leg, and then we're going to send him to the hospital to recover. So why don't you use, we're going to use ether, about 2 drops. Typically it takes anywhere between 8 and 15 minutes for the ether or the chloroform to take effect. We are compressing time here.
He has been rendered senseless.
He's unconscious. He's not going to feel anything. The nurse here is going to be monitoring, going to be listening and feeling, touching, and watching. So, let's see what we have here. Bandage scissors, please. Okay, he's been laying around for a while. Tweezers. How do I know that?
Oh, there's coagulated.
He's got a maggot.
Oh, man.
Oh.
Yeah, well, there's one. He's got brothers and sisters in there too somewhere. Oh. How's he doing, nurse?
He's still under.
Yeah.
His respiratory is good.
That's the
His
splinter.
heart's still beating strong.
I'll throw it in there. Oh, there's one. That's it. Well, there's one more. can do this because he's not feeling it. Yeah, got it. Okay, I want give me some wet.
Doc, is he getting
okay,
close?
we're gonna a little
He's
wet.
getting
lint.
a little ice flutter.
All right. That's too much. I'm just gonna have. There we go. We're gonna pack this a little bit, and you're going to bandage that up, please. Okay. And we're gonna send him on to the hospital to get him. Let him.
Just lay here for a moment
Wait
till your head clears.
Good. Any questions?
Was that water medicated or whatever you put in there?
No.
No?
That came out of a bowl that's going to receive.
What if you miss a maggot?
Pardon?
What if you leave a maggot in there?
Probably nothing. One thing I noticed about this wound is it's very clean, even though it's an older wound. Later on, they find out that maggots eat dead flesh. They don't bother with the live stuff.
He's not actually.
So it keeps
We're
infection
going to be
down.
taking him off to the ambulance. He will be going to a field hospital where they will do more surgery if necessary, and if not, send him on to a general hospital.
There's another
Got one
coming
more
in here.
coming.
Did you wash your hands before you treated them?
Why?
Can we get the red stool over here?
They weren't sticking or anything.
All right.
So, what you got?
Where are you from? Which unit?
First Minnesota, sir.
You guys hit
Another
it.
Minnesota. They've been hit
Can I
hard.
get scissors? Why don't you give me a scalpel?
What do you find so far?
It doesn't look very good.
Dislocated fracture?
Dislocated fracture, and I've nicked the artery. Now we got an arterial bleed. Give me some, no, just some bandages. All right, it's starting to, blood's starting to pool.
You go over here. You monitor his. Monitor breath and put him under.
So we got quite a bit of blood coming out.
2 drops of ether.
We're not going to be able to help him either on the
put you under,
fracture
soldier,
or
okay?
now the arterial bleed.
breathe
So what we're going to have to do is a tourniquet.
Breathe in.
It just keeps going.
He's senseless, doctor.
So what we'll do is we'll put a tourniquet on this because as an aid station we're not able to deal with the arterial bleed, and we'll get them to field hospital. They will take control of it. Nurse, will you pack this and then bandage it up, and we'll get them into an ambulance.
Wet or dry?
Do wet, please.
His pulse is very weak, doctor.
What they would normally, with our arterial, they will have to sew it up, suture it up to close the opening. Go ahead. And at an aid station, we're not equipped to do that because we're trying to get people in and out, especially back to the battlefield or back to their company. So we'll leave the ability to fix the fracture and the arterial bleed. And she's still bleeding through. Tighten the tourniquet just a little bit. There. So a surgeon would, at the field hospital, will suture the artery back together to stop the bleed. The tourniquet will keep it from him bleeding out. The choice is if we didn't put a tourniquet on and just packed it and sent him to the hospital, he would bleed to death before he got there. So this way then, basically, you might lose the leg but save the life.
Coming around, doctor.
Okay. Okay, we're gonna send you to the field hospital.
All right.
We're getting the fucking ball.
We're getting out of here.
You got it?
Take a look at this.
Okay.
Abdominal wound over here. He's hit a bucking ball.
Bucking ball.
The intestines are showing. Over here, look. I can't do anything for you, buddy. We can just make you comfortable. That's all we can do today. You understand? There, I think, can come through right letter home. I'm going to put some on your wound. It's going to stop some of the pain. That's all. This is morphine powder.
This shows what the mini balls do when they go through a canteen. Does the same thing to a human body.
He's got a dollar wound when I was wearing the canteen. Nothing you can do.
We got one more.
One more. One more.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right, let's take a look at what we got.
Oh, it hurts.
Why don't you give me the scissors, please?
My wife patched it up, but I think she's trying to kill me. Left something in there, I think.
Well, gunshot to the lower leg.
It's too late for this one. Send him back.
I think someone told me he owed somebody money. Well, we got something in there. Sometimes you would use a probe to try and find a bullet. Often doctors would just use their finger and wouldn't wash in between. So what we got here is a bullet. But I thought I felt something else in there.
Another bullet?
It's a button.
Look at that.
Well, this guy's leg is going to be okay. It didn't hit the bone or anything. Probably what happened was the guy in front didn't make it, and the bullet went through the guy in front, got the bullet, and put both into his legs, and he was probably in the second rank with it.
That's where the button might have came from.
That's where the button often came from. So, Stuart, would you bandage him up, and we'll get him, actually bandage it up and get him to the field hospital. He'll be back on the line in no time, I'm sure. So it wasn't unusual with a bullet going into somebody. Might have been even sometimes a minor wound, like
Wake him up.
like this. What happens though, if it takes cloth, buttons, or other things, and they have dirt, they have all sorts of stuff, that gets into the body, which then causes the inflammation, or what we would call an infection. So he's not totally out of the woods, but he's not going to lose his leg.
I have a question. How many soldiers would you say died from post-infection, percentage-wise?
That's a good question. That is a good question.
Yeah.
I don't have the figures right with me. There were 93,000 plus surgeries that required general anesthetic. I know that. 217 died from over-anesthetization. Of those 93,000 who required that anesthetic, 99.999% had it.
But it's sometimes difficult. They may have gotten a wound on the battlefield, went to a hospital, laid in a hospital bed, recovering, got pneumonia and died, so it would be recorded as pneumonia, although it was a battlefield wound that actually was the root cause of it.
Sepsis could have set in, gangrene could have set in, that would cause that patient to have lost his leg. And the only way to fix gangrene at the time was to keep amputating up until you can't do it anymore. So what we would say was the surgery was a success. The patient died anyway, but not because of us.
So they knew about germs in Europe, but many of in the medical field in the US at the time didn't believe that a germ could cause so much havoc. So they didn't necessarily accept that theory right away on it. And at one point in time, early in the war, there were so many amputations taking place that there was complaints to the government. So one of the changes that they made in the medical treatment is only about 1 out of 12 surgeons were allowed to do amputations. And no amputations would take place at a field.
2 surgeons to say it needs to be amputated.
Two surgeons had to agree that amputation was required before the surgery was done.
What's the medical training and background of the personnel on the aid station?
You really are.
I'm a
doing-
surgeon,
Okay.
and my rank is the same as a captain. I'm in line to become a major.
Yes.
This
Training.
is an assistant surgeon. Well, I'm getting to it. An assistant surgeon also is a certified medical doctor. He has not been in service that long. His rank is at a first lieutenant. That would be his pay grade. We are learning right here by experience a lot. There was one person that I know of, in fact he came from Germany, from Hanover, Germany, and he got his MD in Germany. He moved to the United States in 1848. In 1849 he went west to get rich with the gold, but he found out that he could make more money by repairing gunshot wounds and broken bones. When the Civil War came along, he enlisted as a surgeon. He became a full surgeon with the rank of major right away because he knew how to do stuff. He had the experience. Most rural physicians at the time knew how to treat some illnesses, some injuries, but they were not that familiar with gunshots. They learned on the job.
The question you had, very narrow part of the training. Surgeon would spend in American school, a lot of American schools, they would spend 1 year studying, 2 semesters. At the end of that year, if they were doing okay and they felt like they wanted to get a little more education, they could pay for more classes and come back, and it's basically repeat the first year. You also had the opportunity of reading in, which would be you'd get your basic and you would serve as an apprentice to a physician, and you could read in. There's actually a female Oregon physician, and I'm so bad with names, but I read about her when we were in a museum here, who that's what she did. She got basic training, so to speak, but she worked as an apprentice so that she would read in. European schools and Canadian schools gave a little bit more. There was a Canadian physician who had finished his first year.
All 4 years.
He had finished his schooling, but he decided that it was between semesters, or between years, because he decided that he wanted to get a little bit extra. And the war was only going to last 3 months, so that was perfect in between the semester. And he would get a little bit more experience. He ended up serving, this Canadian ended up serving throughout the rest of the war.
His biggest difficulty, by the way, as a surgeon, was normally finding the camp in the middle of the night, because it was real dark and he was on horseback and he didn't know where things were here in America. And he didn't get very good direction.
And the roads were atrocious. Absolutely atrocious. You've heard the phrase corduroy roads. It was like riding on corduroy.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're talking about temperatures hitting 100 on the 4th and the 5th. What did they do back during the Civil War? If the heat went up, you couldn't drink the water.
They did drink the water.
Oh, they did drink the water.
That's
They did
why
drink the
there was
water,
so much
but
illness.
there was an awful lot of heat injury.
Mm-hmm.
Soldiers would drop out on the road, march. If they were lucky, somebody would come by and help them a little bit, move off somewhat, so they could get up and finally, get married up with their unit eventually.
If I can make a side
lot of heat,
observation
yeah.
to that, until we moved out here, I was working full time in a very lovely, overly air-conditioned clinic. So I would spend Monday through Thursday long hours in air conditioning and then go out in Midwest heat, and you know nothing about heat. Try 85 degrees and that kind of humidity.
85% humidity?
It is unbelievable. So I had a horrible time in the summer because I was acclimated to cool. And these soldiers, they were more acclimated. Tongue got too fast. If you go, one of the reasons we're all suffering this year is because we've gone cool, hot. Cool, hot. We haven't had that gradual. We're allowed to acclimate to it.
So one of the things that relates to the medical, but there's really not any good statistics when you talk about soldiers lost, is the number that were discharged for disabilities. So every soldier was expected to march with full gear 12 miles a day. Some would do 20 miles a day if they were headed towards a battle and then go straight into battle. So a number were discharged because they'd have leg problems, they'd have varicose veins, their bodies just were not able to handle that. And then think in terms of the lack of shoes for some soldiers, and the shoes were not the greatest. I don't know of any statistics that talk about the number. We talk about diseases, we talk about casualties, but we don't necessarily talk about the large number that ends up being discharged because they were disabled for a variety of different reasons. And there were a lot because life was very brutal.
Wet feet, gang range.
Sleeping at night in the rain.
Some of the shoes and boots that they got had cardboard soles.
That's what I've read in some of the history.
I just saw a show on shoes, marbles. And they mentioned that in the 1850s is when they just started to make shoes that had left and right feet.
Correct.
Before that, there was no distinction.
Just a generic thing. Wow, isn't that crazy?
Military booties, as they were called, had no left or right. Yeah, it wasn't until sometime in mid-war that they started making them as left and right.
Some of the shoes that they made were not made very well, and there was one story about a infantry commander complaining about the shoes he received for his troops, marching, and they fell apart after 2 or 3 miles of marching. And so he went back and complained about it to the manufacturer and said, well, I understand, those shoes were made for the cavalry.
They're not on their feet, they're in the stirrups.
So this is a very rare aid station. We not only have a steward and 2 surgeons, but we have 2 female nurses. They did not often get to the aid station. I'm not going to say it didn't happen, because when the call went out for volunteer nurses, something like 4,000 women volunteered. That's not counting the Dix nurses. We're dressed kind of like Dix nurses. Dix nurses were primarily in hospitals, and they were difficult. They could be difficult. They felt they knew more than the volunteer ones, but there were many nurses close to the field and with it. There is one particularly touching story to me. Mother Newcomb went with her husband, and he brought a young man to her from the town, and she had promised that she would make sure she got him home. Husband brought him in, and he subsequently died, and the husband couldn't figure out why he was having breathing problems. He had gotten a chest wound just like the young man had, and died. She stayed, and she stayed throughout the rest of the war. The young man's story is one of those that is incredibly touching. If I get through it without getting a little bit misty, it'll be great. The coffins were stacked and ready to be shipped home on a boat. The boat captain decided that he could make more money with living passengers. So he was ordering them to unload the coffins. Mother sat on top of the stack of coffins and said, "You will not unload these." Side note, you heard me call her mother. This was a term of endearment. The soldiers, there was the story of Mother Bickerdike, who, after serving her shift, and it was like a dawn to dusk type shift, she's walking tired, she's ready to go down. A young man shouts out, "Mother, mother!" She's tired, and as we all know, we get a little cranky when we're tired.
Why?
And she spun on her heel and says, "I am not your mother." Down, a little crestfallen, he looked at her and he said, "I mean no disrespect. I am calling you that because you gave me the care that only a mother."
Oh, wow.
So we were often referred to by, and we referred to them as our boys.
Yes.
We were often referred to as mother. Between the two of us, that's sister. I'm sister. Unless I'm in a hospital, then I might be matron.
The other Mother Bickerdike story is one less misty.
Yeah.
Basically, a brigadier general was talking to his commander and complaining about that nurse who,
That woman.
that
Wow.
woman who upbraided me and just complained to me and always kept complaining to me. And his commander said, I think she called herself Bickerdike. And he said, "Well, it's C. Sherman. She ranks me."
Put him in his place.
The female nurses were not well received by many male doctors. And by the way, there were female doctors. There is an Illinois woman who served with a unit for 18 months. She applied for her pension when it was over, and they almost denied it. She didn't get paid the whole time either. And they said, "Well, we're not paying you and you're not going to get your pension because, well, you're not a certified physician." Want to know why she wasn't a certified physician? Because the all-male board would not allow her to sit for the exam.
Of course.
So there were female doctors, but in general, the male doctors were not overly thrilled initially. One actually had the audacity, and I cringe every time I say this line, to say, "Female nurses, well, at least the floors will be clean."
But I was.
Any other questions?
No, we love all this. This is great info. Do you have any more questions?
I got nothing.
If you are wandering about and you go, "I wanted to ask," and you're shy, just come up on your own and talk to us. Or if you're wandering about and something pops into your head, one of us is here